Marilyn Monroe. You hear the name and you instantly picture the icon, right? The glamour, the legend. But what if I told you the Marilyn we all know wasn't really a person at all? What if she was a piece of survival technology? In this explainer, we're not just looking at the star, we're going to perform a kind of autopsy on an idea to understand the engineering, the betrayal, and the final tragic collapse of one of history's most misunderstood figures.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We all think we know the story, don't we? The bombshell, the tragedy, the myth. But the reality, well, the reality is so much more deliberate, and honestly, so much more heartbreaking. That shimmering image the whole world fell in love with, that wasn't just a persona. It was a suit of armor, meticulously built, piece by painful piece. And the story of how it was made is tragically also the story of how it was destroyed.
And this is where you can really see the two sides of the coin. On the one hand, you've got the goddess, the global icon, the brand. But on the other, you have the survivor, and that was Norma Jeane, a young woman who went through unimaginable trauma and literally engineered a new person to escape it. The world saw the glamour, but it was completely blind to the constant, grinding pain it took to keep that mask on.
So, to really understand the tragedy, you first have to understand the construction. This is Act 1, the engineering. We're about to see how Marilyn Monroe was built. And let's be clear, this wasn't about vanity, not at all. This was a brilliant, desperate act of self-preservation. This is probably the most crucial point we're going to make today. We have to stop thinking of Marilyn as just a role she played. It wasn't. It was a defense system, a survival mechanism. Every single gesture, every glance, that breathy voice, it was all another plate of armor, designed to shield the terrified young woman inside from a world that had already hurt her so much. And here's where you see the sheer physical cost of that armor. This was not your typical Hollywood makeover. This was a complete feat of bioengineering. We're talking painful electrolysis to change her entire hairline, dental surgery to reshape her jaw and that famous smile. Her iconic voice, that was the result of intense vocal training to get that unique, breathy quality. She even re-engineered the way she stood and walked. Every single detail was built from scratch, born out of a desperate need to be somebody else, anybody else. And hey, just a quick moment here. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on that notification bell, and of course, share and like my videos. All the information in this explainer is compiled from open sources from all around the world. Thank you so much for your support. All right, let's move into Act 2 because this is the moment everything changes. That armor we talked about, it was built to handle Hollywood, the studios, the press, the flashbulbs, but it was never designed to withstand an attack from the inside. A completely different kind of rejection was coming, and it was going to be absolutely devastating. So here's the setup. It's 1956. She marries Arthur Miller, the great American playwright. And for her, this wasn't just another marriage. This was salvation. This was her escape into a world of ideas and substance, a world where she thought finally someone would see the real person behind the mask. But while they were in England filming, she stumbled upon the one thing that would shatter that dream forever.
Just imagine that for a second. Imagine finding the private diary of the person you trust most in the world and reading those words. This is a man who had called her an angel when they first met, and now, in private, he's writing that he's disappointed in her, that she's a burden. This wasn't some critic or studio boss. This was the man she believed was her intellectual savior, the one she had trusted with the truth of who she was.
And this right here is the absolute key to her collapse. You see, the rejections from Hollywood, they were aimed at Marilyn, the product. The armor was built for that. But Miller's words, they went straight through the armor. This wasn't a critique of the performance, it was a rejection of the performer herself. It was a final judgment on the vulnerable Norma Jeane, who had finally let someone in, only to be told she wasn't good enough. That wound was fatal.
And so, we arrive at the final act. With her defenses completely shattered, her last film, The Misfits, written with crushing irony by Arthur Miller himself, stops being a movie. It becomes a chilling, public documentary of her own unraveling.
You honestly couldn't have written a more perfect metaphor for the setting. The brutal, unforgiving Nevada desert. People on set called it a graveyard. And it was. A graveyard for these larger-than-life Golden Age stars. Clark Gable, Montgomery Clift, and Marilyn herself. It was just this bleak, end-of-the-road place that perfectly mirrored what was happening inside of her. And this is where fiction and reality just collide in the most terrifying way. On screen, the script, written by her own husband, is about a failing marriage, just as their real marriage was collapsing.
The character's psychological breakdown on screen was being fueled by her real-life substance abuse and emotional torment on set. So when she screams that famous line, "You act like killers," you have to ask yourself, was that the character talking? Or was that Norma Jeane crying out to a world and to a husband that she felt was literally destroying her?
So, what do we take away from all this? The legend of Marilyn Monroe is, without a doubt, one of Hollywood's greatest creations. But it came at an unbelievable price. For the immortal goddess to live forever, the mortal woman who built her had to be sacrificed. Which really leaves us with just one last, haunting thought. As she stood there in that desert broken, playing a part written by the man who pierced her armor, what was her real final performance? Was it the one being captured on film? Or was it the life she was so tragically losing right there in front of all of us?